Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. I have Abhijit Iyer-Mitra, Defense Analyst, expert online with us. Today we are going to take a lot of questions. Abhijit has to leave in about 40 minutes or so. So we are going to try and make this thing as quick as possible. Just set the introduction. Abhijit will give a 5 to 10 minute summary of what has happened, how did so many casualties happen on both sides, and the most accurate description or accurate situation as of right now, and then we'll start taking your questions. Abhijit, take it away. I know you are short on time. Please go ahead.
Okay, so what's happened is last night, let me start with the sequence.
Yeah.
Yesterday afternoon at around 2:33, there was a disengagement meeting. If you remember, the army chief had said about 2 days back that the disengagement process had already started in Galwan. Now, what is disengagement? Remember, it does not mark the disputed boundary in Galwan. What it does is, it's basically saying wherever we think the disputed boundary is, we are going to withdraw about 2 to 3 kilometers back. We will similarly withdraw 2 to 3 kilometers back so that there will be no fist fights and things like that. That disengagement meeting, because you keep touching point over and over again till the disengagement fully happens, happened at around 2:33. At around 7:30
in the evening,
in the evening, a Indian patrol left. Now, as is normal, you go 2 patrols. A smaller group goes first, and a slightly larger group goes behind it to ensure that, if the first group gets ambushed or anything happens to it, there's always safety in splitting your numbers in that sense, so that the reserves can be called up, or if there's an avalanche or something, the second group can then save you, things like that. Basically, you never put all your eggs in one basket. This has gone up to the Chinese position. Now, if you look at a map of Galwan, what it will show you is that it cuts across if this is the Galwan River coming here, it cuts across the LAC here. Then the LAC moves like this, and then it flattens out here. Now, this is where the ridge is near PP14. This area is called PP14, Patrol Point 14. This is the ridge where this thing happened. Now, what has happened is that they have been going to check that the Chinese verified. Now, this is what we don't know happened over the next 2-3 hours. We don't know what started off, but we basically can reconstruct events. It was a narrow mountain trail, remember. It is not meant for vehicles. It is meant for human beings to walk up. These are no more, a luxurious trail would be about 2.5-3 meters wide. Normally, they're about 1.5, so about, say, 3 feet to about 5 feet maximum wide. And what has happened is that about 5 to 10 of our troops have come across about 15 to 20 of their troops. This first batch has gotten either captured or thrown down the ravine because we don't know what started this. Okay. Normally, the protocol is that you hold up these banners saying you are in Indian territory or you are in Chinese territory. Please go back, and so on and so forth. Something has happened, because I suspect what has happened is either an Indian or a Chinese got thrown off the ridge. And in that particular area, if you zoom in on Google Maps, that is a really, really nasty thing. If somebody falls, the chance of survival is almost zero. And at this point, obviously, you never back off. If one of yours is dead, you don't beat the retreat. You then join up. The backup Indian patrol also joined. And the Chinese backup patrol, which was much bigger, joined. And sometime during the course of this, reinforcements were called in very, very early, within about a 2-hour period. This escalated into a conflagration of almost about 200-300 troops. Now, the thing is, the smaller Indian numbers were kind of good for us. I mean, bad for us initially because, we took fairly heavy casualties. But there was not a landslide. Basically, under the weight of the Chinese, this part of the track has broken off. And so about, say, this happened at night, remember? So we're hearing first-person reports from what happened on the ground. So what has happened is about 40-50 Chinese troops have fallen down. We are missing, I'm not going to give the numbers, but 13 confirmed dead. Another 10, we are kind of hoping are prisoner look, let's not go there. It's probably better that they're prisoners at the moment. But this is what has happened right now. Now, remember, in a normal situation on flat ground, like Pangong or anywhere else, this wouldn't have been a bad situation, right? You would throw punches at each other, you would throw rocks at each other, somebody would get a gash in the head, somebody would get a broken hand, somebody would get a bad cut. Worst case scenario, somebody would lose an eye and things like that, but it would not have resulted in fatalities. The problem here is the terrain. The entire thing, can you imagine about 200-300 people on a road of no more than about 5, maximum 6 feet wide, maybe up to 10 feet in some of the broader areas, but that's about it. Coming into this kind of contact, obviously several people have fallen off the edge. Now, it's very important to remember that there were no gunshots. Without gunshots, you cannot have these kind of casualties. And remember, these aren't also knives. Sticks are allowed. Sticks and rocks are, not allowed, but it's kind of accepted. So the problem is, this is the perfect storm. It has happened at night where your situational awareness was non-existent. We don't know what triggered the initial fight. This is where the big mystery remains. And what has happened is that you've basically lost quite a few troops, but the Chinese have lost more, largely due to their own stupidity. But the point is, we refuse to cede ground. Remember that. The news has come back to us because we refused to cede ground, and our boys were reinforced very, very quickly. That said, we should now remember that, these people who have been saying, Chinese occupation, I want you to notice the sequence of their tweets. Till this morning, they were saying Chinese occupation. Now they are saying Chinese aggression. Why are you denying the Chinese have attacked us? Okay, we have some more floozy reporters going around claiming this proves there was a Chinese occupation. Tell me, how does it prove? You buggers don't even know at which point this incident episode happened, and you're claiming this proves Chinese occupation. Okay, the proof of Chinese occupation is satellite imagery, or you go there, take photos. Notice not one Delhi correspondent is willing to go up to Ladakh, to any of those places, and take photos, just like they were doing in Doklam. They never go because none of these newspapers have any money to go. And it turns out none of these newspaper or TV channels have the money to even buy satellite imagery right now. Okay, or they have the money to buy it. It's just that they don't want to put it out because it doesn't support their narrative. So understand, what has happened today is a perfect storm where all normal protocols failed because of the terrain. It neither proves nor disproves that Chinese are occupying our territory. Let us be very, very clear about it. This could have happened at any given point of time. Okay, because this keeps happening. Every year we go into their territory, they come into our territory. These fisticuffs and stone throwing and things like that happen. So we need to separate this and watch how their language is now changing. China has attacked India. We now need revenge. Till yesterday, it was China has occupied India. We now need revenge. Then till this afternoon, it was, this now proves that the Chinese have occupied our territory. Now it's no longer Chinese have occupied our territory. Now it's Chinese aggression. Okay, so be very, very careful. Don't get carried away by this kind of bullshit.
Thank you, Abhijit, for that opening statement. How much time do you have? The time now is 9:15.
I have to go by 9:55, so let's just take questions.
Okay, let's start taking questions. All right, here's the first question. The first question is from Rohit Singh. What should be our response? Should we go for a war?
Look, I really don't. There's valid reasons to escalate, okay? Because, these many troops being killed. Balakot happened in response to a non-state actor. Well, it's not non-state. It is a sub-state actor. They're proxies of the Pakistani government bombing our troops. Here, what has happened is that a situation has gone out of hand. You can treat it as aggression, but notice the MEA statement hasn't said it is aggression. Okay, they've been very careful in their wording. The Chinese have been somewhat less careful in their wording, but the Chinese also aren't revealing the numbers of people killed. Normally, If you read Alistair Ian Johnston's Cultural Realism, he talks. It's a brilliant book on Chinese this thing on Chinese strategic culture. Every time that they're weak or they're losing something, they claim that this is Chinese magnanimity and goodwill. Every time they're strong, they show you absolutely no mercy. So the very fact that they are refusing to disclose their numbers should tell you a lot. That said, the issue now is one of face. How do the Chinese save face? The very fact that they're not releasing their own numbers shows you that they're trying to save face. Okay, the very fact that the Indian government has put out a sort of non-aggressive statement shows you that India is also trying to save face, and we are trying not to escalate this, despite the extremely high casualties. I personally am not for an escalation right now.
Next question, and Abhijit, I have a stream of questions, so kindly limit your answers to 2 minutes or less, if you will. Sorry to put that restriction on you, because I would like to answer as many people as possible. The next question is from Tavish Sandstorm. This is a pseudonym. What about reports that Chinese used metal rods with sharp nails to hit our troops? Has this been confirmed?
It hasn't been confirmed, but they do use it. We also use, wooden mallets with nails shoved in, because the thing here is when you fall off the ravine, those entire ravines, if you look at it, they are extremely jagged, sharp rocks. If you fall down there, it is going to take you a lot of time to first recover the body and then do the autopsies and figure out what the cause of death was and things like that. But where clubs with sharp nails used, almost certainly both sides use them.
Wonderful. The next question is perhaps you can recap, if you remember, what happened at Galwan in 1962 war.
No, I don't remember. I'll have to.
Let's skip on next. Sorry about that, tall charger. Next question, Abhishek Pratap Singh. Can we sustain a war against China on our own right now?
No, you can't.
Okay. Thank you so much. The next question is from Ankur Pathak. What will happen now if a higher level officer is also killed? I don't know what that question is, but
Look, as it is, a colonel has been killed, which is very high level.
very high
Remember,
level.
their commanding officer has also been killed. Do not forget that. This is confirmed. Their commanding officer has been killed. So what you're looking at now is, look, the rank is kind of, there's never equivalent rank. The commander of the New Zealand Army, for example, is a brigadier. The Indian commander of the army can sometimes be a field marshal. That doesn't mean he outranks the general. So this is a question of equivalence. But the point is, the colonel was in this party, either the first or the second tranche or the reinforcement tranche that came up. We don't know, because if you're going to say it goes up higher, I don't think at a higher level they will actually be commanding this from the front. It is not the job of a higher, the other officer has to monitor the battle, not lead the troops.
Kaushik Devnath has this question. Will the US get involved if this escalates further?
The US will definitely see an opportunity to get involved if this escalates further. I suspect what they'll do is what they tried to do to us in 1971, which is that they'll send a big fleet on the Chinese eastern seaboard just to just to force China to divert troops and aircraft to the western seaboard. Remember, because of the USS, I think it was the Enterprise in 1971, we had to bog down a lot of our troops in one theater of fighting, and we couldn't actually do much.
Thank you, Abhijit. Kapil Tadur has this question. Do you think Israel would support us or be neutral?
Israel will very much support us, but they will do it like they've always done, which is very coyly and quietly. They will supply us with arms and they'll request we don't publicize it because they don't want to lose their businesses in China. They will definitely not supply China. And this I can tell you for a fact, because if they end up supplying China, it will be a huge breach of trust with Donald Trump that has forced them. You remember, the Americans have forced Israel to cancel several deals with China. The Falcon radar, the drones, the Harpy attack drones and things like that. So they will not support China. They will be providing us with arms and ammunition on demand.
Thank you so much. Vicky Mevada has this question. What are the follow-up steps that India can take?
Look, this is a freak accident. Okay. there's literally no follow up that you can take, because unfortunately, given the protocols that have remained the same protocols over the last 40 years, nobody could have foreseen this event happening, right? Do we now you have to negotiate all new protocols to avoid a thing like this. So for example, if two patrols meet on a ridge like this, on a ledge like this, what do? What is the standard? Even there we don't know, because we still don't understand what happened at that initial point of contact. We still don't know what started this off, who pushed who. Was it a push? Was it drunk people throwing each other off? God knows what was happening. Okay, so we have to first of all, even the resource for a primary analysis of what happened, what started this off, doesn't exist. But it's basically, going forward, we have to work on protocols to avoid something like this, because this is going to damage relations quite badly anyway.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. Viewers, there's a lot of questions here, along the lines that can we handle escalation on three fronts, China, Pakistan, and Nepal. And I think Abhijit just answered this question. If you want to add
the answer is no. The answer is no. With Pakistan, yes, we could have handled it. With China, see, the problem is the same as the American Civil War, the North and the South. The South may have greater elan, but ultimately the country that can outlast, that has greater industrial depth, is the one that ends up winning. Okay, so we may perform very well, but there's no way you can outlast Chinese industrial strength.
I was going to ask you, who do you think, but you answered the question. Pardidi DM has a question. Is it a good time to engage other stakeholders, such as the Dalai Lama?
Look, I've never understood why we always turn our backs on the Dalai Lama, turn our backs on Taiwan, and we still have this absolute idiotic policy of not saying America is our ally based on what happened in 1971. My friend George Perkovich always used to say, every time he comes to India in 2019, he was waiting for the Fifth Fleet and the Enterprise to sail into the conversation. The Ghost Fleet. Okay, 40 years down the line. You can't have a foreign policy like this. You just can't. And the people who oppose this the most are a lot of people in the MEA and the MOD, which, the Taiwanese keep telling us that your people are compromised. What is this fear of China? The standard answer they have is, oh, we need China's vote to get into the Security Council. If we antagonize China, we will never become a permanent member of the Security Council. I am giving you a written guarantee. If I live till 2100, okay, we will still be having this conversation. India will still not be a permanent member of the UN Security Council. You forget about it. China, it doesn't matter what you do. You can bend over backwards. You can give them the whole of Kashmir. You can give them the whole of Arunachal. They are not giving you Security Council membership. Full stop. So stop doing this nonsense. Anybody who tells you that in the MEA, order a counterintelligence surveillance of them.
That's a very good answer. And I think Dr. Swami also called for a reset on the foreign policy, that we just don't seem to be looking at all the aspects that China does and then just keep being very meek. And by Taiwan saying that, the officers are compromised, that is something that Mr. Modi needs to look at. For the longest time,
Look, let's be clear, Shri. Let's focus on the questions. Let's not give our own commentary.
All right.
But the thing here is, it will never happen because Modi is absolutely in love with his bureaucrats.
Okay, quick question from generally everyone. How many PLA soldiers have perished so far, in your opinion?
Look, it happened at night. So the report that went to the commanders was about 40 to 50. But remember, this is a narrow, you're looking at a mountain on this side, a thin piece of land here. You can't gauge the numbers. It was heavy enough for the trail to collapse. And this is quite hard rock, mind you. It's not soft rock. So imagine there were definitely considerable enough numbers for that trail to collapse and for that landslide to happen. We suspect about 40 to 50 Chinese have fallen down. Now, the likelihood of survival is virtually non-existent there, given the sheer height of the drop. The closest drop is around 180 to 200 feet at least, and extremely sharp, jagged rocks. You fall on those rocks, even at 20, 30 feet, there is going to be serious damage. 200 odd feet, forget about it.
Next is a good question. I'm skipping a few questions in interest of time. Ajay Kumar wants to know, is there a possibility of cyber warfare from China?
Well, there always is. They've been doing cyber warfare. I suggest you Google this. They compromised our computers in our MEA computers in 2011. Then they compromised it again in 2015, 16. Anyway, I don't remember the dates, but I remember in the 2000s, they compromised us twice. And basically, they could turn on the camera and mic of any Indian computer in any Indian embassy anywhere in the world and listen in on conversations. Okay. And the funny thing was, it wasn't Indian counterintelligence or Indian counter cyber intelligence that picked up on this, because the computers were giving problem. They went to McAfee or something like that to fix the problem, and they detected it and told us about it. And then the same thing happens the second time around also. Okay, so let's not place too much store on our competence. We're not. Our cyber hygiene is atrocious. I'm not even going to deal with our cyber hygiene out here, but it is a joke.
We dealt on this a little bit, but I'll ask the question. Shivakumar Krishnamurti Jairaman wants to know, why is the government not being transparent with the facts? We've been given very little info since media. It's all media speculation. I'm not so sure I agree with that, but please tell me what you
Look,
think.
there's two aspects to this. One is this government has always been incompetent with communication. If you remember, after demonetization, people were asking, give us the benchmarks that you use. There were no benchmarks. We even 4 years on, we haven't seen the benchmarks. During the Delhi riots, what did we see? No member of the MEA or the government came out and did a press conference and systematically busted all the false narratives that were doing rounds out there. You know, everybody then went gaga when the foreign minister said, I have banned USCIRF from getting visas and they have no locus standi on it. Tell me, what were they meant to base their reports on when the government refused to hold a press conference or put out its version, put out a clear version of events out on the internet? Okay, how the hell they were meant to go on newspaper reports, and all the newspaper reports were saying that it's a one-sided riot, it's a Hindu pogrom on Muslims and things like that. So what did you expect? So on one hand, there is a serious communications deficit. I don't know if it is by intent or by accident. Okay, this is number one. Number two is the situation in the LAC and things like that. Now understand, nobody is putting out maps. The Chinese have not put out maps of the LAC. No government, the Congress is going on, Rahul is going on saying things. If he has the guts, why can't he put out a map of the LAC? He's had so many members, cabinet members there. He's got so many defense members, defense ministers in his Congress working committee. Why isn't he putting out a map of the LAC? The LAC is a bargaining line. Okay, you never go to a vendor and say, you're going to sell me this vegetable for 40 rupees. I can go up to 60 rupees, but you sell it to me for 40 rupees. When you put the LAC down, you're basically saying that. Okay. In fact, the LAC is so classified because it is a bargaining line. We don't even draw it for our troops when they go out and patrol. So there is always certain amount of confusion with the troops. They are given certain coordinates and then they're given GPS and they're told to go out. Okay. Because you don't want your maps getting captured by these people. Okay. So it's a very, and if you give them, say, electronic maps like on the phone, they will then torture the person who's been captured and then extract the information, the password or whatever, to get in there and get the map. See, so the maps are not given. The maps change because there are operational details in there. So each commander will then label things differently and so on and so forth. So there is also a good reason for a certain level of lack of transparency, but it is two things happening. Lack of transparency because of the operational requirements out there and the geopolitical and cartographic requirements, plus incompetence.
Wonderful answer. And next question from Kiran Venkatraju. Will Russia help India if there is an all-out war with China?
No, they won't.
Okay. Go on. We have a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up this. Will the government of India now take steps to reduce trade with China and look for alternatives? How can the people of India contribute in this direction?
No, the government will not. In fact, I suspect in about 3-4 months' time, we'll be back to Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. Because remember, all the bureaucrats will tell you, Sir, China is too important. We can't afford to alienate them. We need our UN Security Council seat. So we will continue. There will be no change in the pattern of trade. The suspicion of America will continue because, for whatever reason, I don't know, but the suspicion of America will continue. So nothing is going to change. And as a citizen, I'd suggest you do nothing about it because you can trend all these things, boycott China and da-dee-da-dee-da. The only person that will end up looking foolish at the end of it is you because the government won't do damn all.
Last question for this hangout. Kushagra Bharadwaj. Do you think it's time for us to push our defense budget to like $120 billion and start working on an organization like DARPA for India?
Look, you can keep doing organizations. The problem is, first of all, 120 billion is completely unsustainable. Even 65 billion that we spend now is unsustainable. Why? Because you waste all that money. You give everything to DRDO, HAL, and people like that, who, had they worked like DARPA, would simply be, a crown jewel where all the intelligence scientists go on vacations to work on their pet projects, and they come up just with cutting-edge research. DARPA, have you ever seen them get into production? No. Okay, they don't get into things like production and trying to monopolize every single production chain. Here, anything that comes up, DRDO will say, we will do this. HAL will say, we will do this. And see, the problem is they don't run like the private sector. Okay, they run like a big corporation and a big, inefficient, unaccountable corporation. So you can keep increasing your budget. It's all going to go down a black hole. And you can have a DARPA, but unless you sort out the problem of lack of accountability in the public sector, nothing is going to happen. This does not mean we don't have brilliant people in the DRDO. Let's not minimize that. Our ballistic missile program and our cruise missile program are absolutely brilliant. Okay, but that's because they came with a high level of micromanagement direct from the Prime Minister's office because they're so important for nuclear delivery. Everything else, these people have just taken for granted because, like all government departments, you can't reward efficiency. You have to reward seniority because seniority is how government promotions happen. Okay, so it can't happen.
That's a very good answer, Abhijit.
We have quite a bit of time. It's 9:35 p.m. We've got
excellent.
20 minutes.
Yeah, excellent. So there are a few more questions that came in. What, in your opinion, was the role of MEA during the crisis? Raghavendra SM wants to know.
The MEA makes statements.
Ridhiman Agarwal. Will India have the ability to retrieve Aksai Chen in the near future?
No. Not in my lifetime. I don't know how old you are, maybe in your life, but probably not in your lifetime either.
Well, okay. So if I understand you correctly, and I just want to kind of get back to just you and I talking because the questions have now stopped. Thanks for the viewer support. We have crossed 800 viewers, which is really, really amazing. In your opinion, this was something of a miscommunication where things happen where the top level people may have agreed on some things, but it did not transcend down to the lowest level, perhaps.
No. There was no. Sorry, there was no miscommunication. It was a chain of unfortunate events. Everything that happened on both sides went as it should. We don't know what the trigger event was when the two patrols met, but everybody followed protocol. And it's a chain of unfortunate events.
Now, you mentioned that there was a landslide. Do we have any information if the landslide happened on the Chinese side of the amassing?
Yes, it happened on the Chinese. No. We still don't know on which side of the LAC this happened because remember, nobody has maps given to them.
Right.
It's on a mountain ridge, so you don't exactly know which side is which side and things like that. This is like we're talking about a calibration of 200-300 meters. Okay, that is what. So we don't know, but the landslide happened where the Chinese troops were. I don't know which side of the LAC it happened on.
So I guess the question then leads to the answer that if the landslide happened where on the specific area where the Chinese side was amassed, so the casualty is also going to be much more on their side. I mean, There will be some on India side also because it kind of drags you down, right? You don't know how the land gives way. And if it is such a steep fall, my God, sorry for all those
So
people?
from the way I understand it is almost all the casualties there were Chinese. Our casualties were mostly because of the pushing and shoving, because the Chinese numbers were initially, they were much greater.
I see. I see.
And they were
Uh,
reinforced very quickly.
Now, if India gets the better of this confrontation, what does it mean for Xi's future as the premier of China? Karan,
Here's
tell
the
us
thing,
what's-
there's no better of this. Okay, we've lost about, unfortunately, way too many troops. The Chinese have also lost way too many troops. Disengagement itself is going to be defeat. For Xi, this is going to be a defeat in a sense. For Modi, it is going to be defeat in a sense. Sadly, this is not win-win. This is lose-lose. Okay, nobody is going to come out looking good from this. But I suspect they will do the statesmanly thing, and just swallow the defeat.
So we still have not seen the back of coronavirus. And what is the information reaching you about Corona 2.0, which is supposed to have reared its ugly head in China in many cities? This time it's not just Wuhan area, Shanghai, Guangdong province, Beijing, and so on and so forth. What is the update that you have on that?
Look, this was going to happen because we'd seen high reinfection rates and things like that. I don't know why people are so surprised by it. We're going to, now that lockdown ends here, it's going to happen here as well. This is just, it's the new normal. Get used to it.
Well, I think what everybody seems to be hinting is to develop herd immunity, that more and more people get exposed to it. There is an immunity that kicks in, and that helps. Abhijit, I just lost your video, but it came back. Maybe there's a power on mode or something. Okay. The last question, I mean, there are some questions, but they're all repeating more or less what has been discussed before. So I request all the viewers to go back and watch this video from the beginning. Your questions should have been answered. See, this quad relationship that India has, India, Japan, Australia, and US, is that an alliance that would come to India's rescue, assuming that there's another front opened, like on the ocean side or something like that?
See, it would have been a useful relationship. The problem is we have ensured it will never be a useful relationship because our ships, our submarines, our missiles, our planes, they can't talk to each other seamlessly. The Americans, the Australians, and the Japanese can talk to each other absolutely seamlessly. They can work as one navy. We will never be able to do that simply because we have too much mix and match equipment. Okay. And the main reason we get this mix and match is because we're unwilling to commit to any kind of alliance. The French keep telling me, because, the French, after the Suez crisis, they withdrew from NATO. They didn't withdraw from NATO, they withdrew from the command structure of NATO. Charles de Gaulle, after it, Charles de Gaulle comes back and he says, this is an affront to French sovereignty. We are going to withdraw from the command structure. But they never withdrew from NATO. Why didn't they withdraw from NATO? So the thing is, they say we maintain strategic ambiguity, not strategic schizophrenia. In India, we are strategically schizophrenic. We try to pass it off as ambiguity. We try to pass off stupidity as profundity. Okay, so there is no chance of this relationship blossoming. I am hoping against hope that this wakes up our prime minister to the dangers the Chinese pose, to the dangers that compromised bureaucrats pose, the hangover from JNU, the old school of thought. My fear is he's just going to double down on failure. You've seen him double down on failure far too often. He's going to double down again.
Well, speaking of that, even today, the UPSC recruitment process is heavily weighted in favor of left-leaning people getting into the system. That has not been touched yet.
Of course, the recommended reading is still the Hindu.
Yes.
I want you to see the Hindu's coverage today and tomorrow. This is the coverage that will be asked to be reproduced in the civil services exam. Okay, so you figure out for yourself.
That's very, very unfortunate. Now, Abhijit, last question. I mean, I'm doing this several last questions. I still have a little bit of time. Yeah. All right. So the last question is the relative strengths of the Air Force between India and China. We'll end with this one. What is, in your opinion, the relative strengths of these two air forces?
Relative strength is we have more sophisticated equipment for us. They have vastly larger numbers. Okay, and all their equipment can talk to each other, but because we have French, Russian, British equipment and all of that, it can't talk to each other properly.
So this is one problem where you have to form long-term alliances.
I have to go now, Sri.
Yes, thank you so much, Abhijit, for taking time out to meet with us. And viewers, this has been a most engaging session. The reason for our existence is the way the MSM in India is covering this news. And you can see that this was perhaps one of the most incisive, insightful, informational hangouts on what is happening, the landslide information that it happened on Chinese side, that India probably suffered fewer casualties, because when there's a landslide, all bets are off. The earth that you're standing on just falls apart, gives way, and that is very, very unfortunate. So thanks for watching this. We had an excellent audience today, and we'll be back with more such engaging conversation. Thank you very much.